All right. Well, it's 11:04, so I'm going to go ahead and kick it off. Thanks for everybody staying engaged while we were just waiting. We really appreciate it. We are so excited to be hosting this quarter's MBAC Educate series with Steve Powell. Some of you may or may not know him, but he is local to us in High Point, North Carolina, and is currently working with Atlantic Bay. So excited to have him here. I'm just going to let you know a little bit more about his past, and then we'll get into some of just the key things to keep in mind as we go through the presentation. And again, we keep the interaction up. We want this to kind of be more of a virtual workshop versus, you being talked to and not taking anything away. So if you have questions or anything, raise your hand, throw them into the chat box. But let me just get Steve introduced and then we'll kick it off to him. So Steve is the CEO and head coach of Testament Leaders and the best-selling author of the Sales Rhythm Playbook. He is also a sales coach and growth executive with Atlantic Bay and has more than 35 years experience producing and leading sales teams in the mortgage and banking industry. He coaches growth-minded leaders and sales professionals to create predictable revenue and build accountable, high-performing cultures and teams. Through his signature high positive accountability coaching process and sales rhythm business development system, he equips teams and leaders to focus on what matters most, win more deals, and strengthen their influence. Steve and his bride, Ginger, they've been married for 29 years. And like I said, they live in High Point, North Carolina. They have 2 children, Allie, who is 24 and is director of sports broadcasting at Charleston Southern University, and their son, Brock, who is 20 and at his second year of North Carolina State, where Steve is also an alumni. So thank you so much, Steve, for joining us for this quarter's call. Super excited to hear what you have to say and just to kind of follow along. So again, for everybody listening in, stay engaged. There is a sheet to follow along with, like a growth plan in the chat box. So make sure you have that and don't hesitate to reach out, ask questions, and let's kick it off. Thanks, Steve.
I love it. I love it. Thanks, Amber. Good to be with you guys today. And again, print or download the attachment that's in the chat, because what I want to do today with you guys is just share some things that have worked for me and the people that I've had the privilege to work with, to produce alongside, to lead over the years, things that have worked for us to, as the slide says, to, in this case, finish strong, finish 25 strong, and start 2026 even stronger, right? We're in that phase where we're starting to do business planning. We're having those how do we end the year strong types of conversations, and maybe this gives you a framework, which I think is a really strong framework to use to finish strong and start 26 stronger. So it's really built for long-term results. And, I think the key to every plan that we ever create is to rely on a firm foundation. And that's what keeps your business sturdy. It's what keeps it strong. And we know throughout my years in the mortgage business, some of you have been in it longer, some of you not quite as long, but we've all, a lot of us have been around a little while, and we've seen a lot of things come and go. We've seen a lot of tech innovation. We've seen a lot of product innovation. We've seen a lot of regulatory innovation. And we may not want to use the word innovation for regulatory, but it happens. But throughout all of those innovations, all those changes, all those ups and downs that we may have been through in our industry, having this foundation that you can rely on each day to do the things you need to be doing to get better each day is key. I mean, it's critical. I mean, think back to the innovations we've seen over, like in the 35 years that I've been doing this. When I started doing this, we were handwriting 1003s. In June of 95, Desktop Underwriter gets released. The company I was with at the time, we tried to give it to our loan officers to use at the point of sale. I thought that was really innovative at the time, and thankfully it worked. Um, Product innovation has come and gone. We saw a ton of innovation in the mid 2000s, in the mid 2000s, 2005, 6, 7, 8. Some of that didn't work out so well, right? So and as a result of that, we've now seen a good bit of regulatory innovation. Some of it needed, maybe some of it you could question wasn't, but with ability to repay in 2014, with TRID in 2015, and just the monitoring of what we do for a living, we've seen all this stuff come and go. But what can we rely on? We need a foundation that each of us, because when it comes down to it, it's just you each day determining what it is you need to be doing, and having this foundation, I hope, will help. So, I want to share with you things that have worked for me, the people that I've had the chance to work alongside and lead over the years. And I hope that you'll take away some nuggets, take away the framework that you can use in your business and even in your life. Okay, so please rely on that worksheet. It's really a note page that I hope that maybe you'll take some notes and walk away with something that you can use, that you can go share with your teams, and just begin, as we get ready to go into fourth quarter, begin to have some really productive conversations. So let's go to I'm going to start with the three elements that I coach around and have coached around for many years. As we go through each of these slides, I want you to think about which one of them speaks to you. In the chat, if you have a chance, pick one of them. And I may ask you at the end of each slide, to pick one of these three elements that you think works best for you, or that you can commit to taking away as you get ready to start using this plan. I always start with folks that I'm working with around purpose. Okay, what I call set your mind. Set your mind on things above is it's from Scripture, it's from the Bible, but it applies. And I think how we determine our purpose and then have something to latch onto that we can go to when the challenges come, when we're having a bad day, when we're having some success, and we can even latch on to this bigger purpose. Okay, and I'm going to talk through kind of how I go through helping people kind of develop this purpose statement. But three things I want to mention to you, and you'll notice as we go through this, each slide has 3 bullets. And that's because throughout my years of coaching, I am a certified leadership coach through Maxwell Leadership as well. And we get a lot of good training that helps us be better coaches. But one of the things that I've learned is that, a lot of us are pretty big chuckleheads, and we can only really focus on 3 things at one time. So, in my coaching exercises with folks, we'll make lists of things that they want to do, and then we'll pick the best 3, and we'll throw the list away, and we'll just focus on those 3, because I think we just have such short-term brains. I call it chuckle brain, and we go after shiny objects. We can't focus for very long, and so having a manageable amount of tasks that we can focus on, I think, is helpful. So the 3 things that I want to share with you around purpose is, it all starts with leading yourself well. If you are not telling yourself what you're going to do, if you're not setting your plans, if you're not making lists, if you're not working from a viewpoint of focus day in and day out, it's going to be hard to stick to that greater purpose, or have your efforts, your daily work efforts, align with your purpose. So leading yourself well is certainly key. And I think one of the things about that I heard somebody mention that I really liked recently was, we have to be the architect of response, because really all we generally can control is how we respond to most things, and being the architect of how you're going to respond to situations, to tasks that you've got to do, to interactions, to conversations. is something that we have to learn to master. And I think that's a critical piece of leading yourself well. The second bullet talks about positive self-talk. And throw in the chat, give me a thumbs up or whatever if you're familiar with the concept of positive self-talk. It's not revolutionary. I didn't make it up or anything, but I believe in it. I believe that what we say to ourselves about ourselves is very critical. And we have to be speaking positive truth to ourselves as we go through our days. It's very easy to get down. It's very easy to let a circumstance, or like I mentioned, being the architect of response, it's very easy to respond negatively, to respond in a way that's going to hurt you, that's going to set you back. And so having positive self-talk moments with yourself and having even specific things that you can tell yourself from time to time, that, I am this, or I will be this, or I am growing at this. What you say to yourself about yourself is key. And then the third bullet talks about focusing on controllables. And so we know during our days that we're a lot of things are out of our control, right? We like to think we have our hand on everything, that we can control everything, but we don't. And so focusing on those things that we do have control over is going to drive our days. You can spend your days out of control. You can spend your days trying to influence someone's reaction to something that happened. You can spend your days trying to control stuff that's just not controllable. So what we tend to need to spend our days focusing on are our performance and our effort. I've coached baseball for many years. Amber and I were talking about travel ball earlier, and I coached my son through baseball, and I've coached baseball for a long time. And I will tell players, I coached a lot of little leaguers, and I will tell players to be the ace. Okay. And ACE stands for something. ACE is an acronym for attitude, commitment, and effort. And I'm like, kids, focus on being the ace. Control your attitude, control your commitment, and control your effort, and be the ace. And I think that applies to us even when we're not playing baseball. I think it applies to every area of life. Those are the things that we tend to have the most control over: our attitude, our commitment, and our effort. So, so we start with purpose. Now, how to build a purpose statement. I want to share with you just a little bit about an exercise that I go through with folks. You can call purpose your why. You can call it your mission, your vision, whatever you like. I call it purpose. And I break it down with folks as we have a professional purpose and a personal purpose. And there's two questions I like folks to ask. Around your professional purpose, the question I want people to think about as they're writing their purpose statement is, what do I want my clients, my peers, my referral partners, and others around me in my life, what do I want those people to say about how I lead and conduct my business? What do I want them to be saying when they're out in their circles and they have the opportunity to, if they had the opportunity to talk about me and my business, what would I want them to say about how I lead and conduct my business? And that, as you write down your thoughts to that, and I'll encourage you, jot down that question, and when you have time, think about that and write down, what would I want people that are closest to me to say about me and my business? And then the second part is your personal purpose. What do I want my business success to allow me to be, to do, and to have in life? And so you write down your professional purpose, what I want people closest to me to say about me. And then I write down what I want my business success to allow me to be, to do, and to have in life. And you connect the two. So if I want those closest to me to say that I lead with purpose, that I lead with integrity, that I conduct my business in an ethical way, in a high character way, that's how you start your purpose statement. And then you insert, so that I can be, do, and have these things in life. I can be the kind of community advocate I want to be. I can be an influencer in the real estate community. I can do these types of things for the community. Maybe it's I can be the kind of dad I should be, the kind of husband I should be. I can be, I can do things for my family, or I can have these things. I can have the kind of retirement I want to have. You know, we always have to be connected to the bigger things in life. And so that's how I try to get folks to think about defining their purpose is let's focus on what you really want people to say about how you lead your business and conduct your business, but let it lead to what's most important to me. So I'll leave you with that around purpose. Throw in the chat some thoughts. Amber can let me know if there's any thoughts around that. I'd love to hear your thoughts around what your purpose statement is. If there's some key words out of it that you have, I'd love to hear them. We're going to go on to the second element that I coach around. And I use this one and the next one very interchangeably. Holding yourself accountable. So accountability and consistency work together. But holding yourself accountable or being self-accountable is key. And that's where it all starts. Because I always tell folks, unless you are willing to hold yourself accountable for your attitude, your commitment, and your effort, going back to our ACE acronym, unless you're willing to hold yourself accountable to those things, no other form of accountability is going to be very effective. So 3 things to think about, jot these down, under accountability, under holding yourself accountable. Be willing to own it. And be willing to own your, as the quote says down below, your thinking, your behaviors, and your results. If you're not willing to take ownership initially over your thinking, which is going to drive your behavior and drive your results, then no other form of accountability is going to be able to help you. Track your progress. Now, we were all familiar with scorecards. We're all familiar with, with ways of tracking. We got tech solutions around that kind of stuff that allow us to track our progress around our business efforts. But even larger goals, you got to be able to track. That's a huge self-accountability measure, is to track your own progress. So I'll get into goals in a little bit, but tracking your progress around, and this is daily progress I'm talking about, around certain goals that you may set is a key element of holding yourself accountable. Having that daily review with yourself where you're talking about, how did I do today? Where did I fall short today? And what can I do better tomorrow? And then the third bullet is trust others to help you. And this is where, as a coach, it's a very key skill for a coach to be able to build trust with folks they coach and folks they work with. I strive to try to be that kind of coach that's gonna be very Socratic in my approach to others. I tend to coach from a very Socratic path because I want the journey that they're on to be theirs. I call myself the navigator a lot of times, or to help folks on their journey, on their path. It's not my path, but I want to help influence it as best I can and bring my experience and my perspective to bear. But I've got to build trust with folks. And we as leaders have to be building trust with those around us. And I think a lot of that starts with being curious, seeking to understand before being understood. And so the 3 elements around holding yourself accountable, be willing to own it, track your progress, and trust others to help you. Those things are key. The quote that I've listed here, and I don't really know who said it. I've said it many times, but self-accountability requires both the choice and the discipline to own your thinking, your behavior, and your results. And that there's 2 key pieces there: choice and discipline. If you're not willing to choose accountability, then no discipline is going to work. And if you're not willing to keep yourself disciplined around your highest value tasks, and if you're not willing to stay disciplined around how those tasks connect to your purpose, then you're never going to achieve what you want to achieve. Now, you might get there, but it's going to be tough. So, in the chat, if you guys have any ideas around or thoughts around how you hold yourself accountable, we'd love to hear them. So throw those in the chat for others to see. Now, I threw this slide in this morning. So I was doing some fine tuning and thought I would share this. This is something that I use with folks to help them see how important how we think is in impacting performance. So you generally start in the sort of upper left with a goal, right? We set a goal and then we start thinking about how am I going to achieve that goal? So we have a thought or we have thoughts. Those turn into beliefs or expectations. We start thinking through the thought, we start trying to visualize, what do I expect to happen as in achieving this goal? Some of the thoughts you have really don't take hold, and so you don't have a lot of belief around them, but some do, and you start to build plans and activities around that goal. Then those plans and activities start to affect your attitude and hopefully start to create some drive, start to create some momentum, which then should create some behavior. But you'll see the big green arrow that I put in here. This is what we call the knowing doing gap. And we all struggle with it. You've heard about it, particularly at the beginning of the year when you're going to the gym. And we all go to the gym at the beginning of the year and all the gyms are full because everybody decided on their New Year's resolutions that they were going to get fit. And by the end of January, the gym's empty because nobody got fit, right? And the reason we set a goal, we had a great thought, but we never bridged the gap between knowing and doing. We knew we should. We know we should exercise. So why don't we? And so those that have mastered that, those that have turned what they know they should do into what they're doing, have bridged that gap. You may have some things in your life where you fought through that knowing doing gap, and now it's a habit. And I applaud you because that's harder than you think. But once you do, and this is where the impact of coaching can come alongside and help you, is to bridge the knowing doing gap simply by helping walk alongside you on your journey and creating an accountable, consistent framework. So then you bridge that gap, you're behaving, you're doing activities on a regular basis, you're creating results, and you're getting performance, which generally starts to repeat the cycle of, okay, let's level up these goals. Let's see what we can do better. Let's see how this level of performance spins off something new, and let's create a goal around that. And then you start the cycle again. But this is something that high performers never stop doing. So I'll encourage you with this framework, as you think about, if for folks you lead, you may have some folks right now, I'll encourage you to think about it. You may have some folks right now that are in that knowing doing gap. They know what they should be doing, and I'm going to talk about the 4 rhythms here in a little bit. It may be one of the 4 rhythms. They know they should be doing better at that, and they just don't. And so how can I help them? So, because I know as a leader, you can help them with that knowing doing gap. Let's go next to consistency. I mentioned accountability and consistency are key. 3 things around consistency: develop structured routines, insert balance, and practice and get feedback. So routines come out of bridging the knowing doing gap and creating strong behaviors that are done consistently. And as I'm going to share on a future slide, when I'm talking about goals, plans, and activities, that's really where structured routines come into play, because there's a few elements around creating a routine that works best for you, because it's going to work different for everybody. But we're developing structured routines. We're inserting balance. I'm big about life balance, even what we call intentional imbalance. You either want to be really good when you have to be on at work, you're on at work, and maybe you're imbalanced toward your work performance. But when you're at home with your family, you're intentionally imbalanced towards your focus on your family. But having that balance that you can move in and out of is key. And then practicing and getting feedback. And that's where I was with the folks that I coach and work with, have a chance to help them with that. I have the chance to help them with practice and getting feedback. The wise sage, Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson, said that success is about consistency. Consistent hard work gains success. And so, as we think about accountability and consistency together, those really are the two drivers for consistent performance for long-term results. Okay. Throw in the chat if you have some consistency types of things in your life that you rely on to keep you consistent. Maybe it's an accountability partner. Maybe it's a coach. Maybe it's a family member. Maybe it's somebody there. I tend to think the best type of accountability and consistency comes in the form of another person or a group of people that you can hold each other accountable to around certain things. So if you don't have that, I would encourage you to get it. So let's go on next to goals, plans, and activities. As we're working through this, look back. We've talked about purpose, which is really the overarching reason why we work. We've got to have that. We've got to have that bigger purpose behind our work. Then we've talked about consistency. We've talked about accountability and putting those two things together. That then turns into goals, plans, and activities. If I have this purpose, accountable, consistent framework, then I can build goals, I can form goals, I can create plans, and I can create tasks and activities that I know that I know I've got a strong foundation on which to perform. So 3 things around goals, plans, and activities. The quote I love to use is, a goal without a plan is a wish. We can set goals all day, and we're going to get in, we're in this going into fourth quarter. We're going to start thinking about goals. We're starting to think about, how do I hit goals I've set for this year before the year runs out? We're going to talk about what 26 looks like. And it's great to set goals, but if you're not going to plan around them down to the activity level, it's not going to work. And we've all seen it. We've probably all done it. We've created a goal, we didn't plan enough, and we didn't get the result we wanted. So 3 things to think about: consistent focus on action. Having that consistent focus on being active, okay? Around the second bullet there, your highest value tasks and your highest value time, what I call prime time. So when do you work best at your highest value activities? Some folks are morning people. Some folks are afternoon people. Some folks are all day people. But when do you perform at your best? And that's the time to be doing your highest value work. And then we set goals, plans, and activities, and we start them with verbs. Always start with verbs. Don't set a goal, don't write a plan unless it's full of verbs, like call, meet, send, post. You come up with the verbs. Throw the verbs in the chat of ways that you start your activities, right? But the way you start an activity, the way you write it, has an effect. When you start it with a verb, you're committing yourself to action. So I'll just encourage you, think about how you write your goals, your plans, and activities down each day. When you're making that daily to-do list, start them with verbs. Some of you might be familiar with Pearson's Law. Pearson's Law says, when performance is measured, performance improves. But when performance is measured and reported back to someone else, an accountability partner, a coach, a leader, a manager, the rate of improvement accelerates. And all Pearson's Law is describing is what I call a positive accountability loop. When you perform something that you've set your mind to, because you set a goal, you created a plan, you listed out activities to achieve the goal, and you performed it, and you measured it, you're going to get results. But when you do that process and you report it back to someone you trust, your rate of improvement accelerates. So encourage you around Pearson's Law, embrace Pearson's Law, particularly if you're a leader. Embrace Pearson's Law with others. Share that with them as you try to help them stay accountable to the things that they're working for. Share that law, because that law can really create a good relationship between you and the people you lead. Here's something that some of you may have seen, but this just drives home the point of consistency. And this is specific to those of us in sales, those of us that are following up on leads. We're generating new prospects. We're nurturing our referral sources. We're staying on top of our closed client database, our book of business, and we're trying to stay active with them and stay in touch with them and add value. And I put 2 arrows there. Only 10% of salespeople make more than 3 contacts when they are following up really with anybody, whether it's a lead, whether it's a new prospect that you want to do business with. And then the second one, 80% of sales are made on the 5th to 12th contact. So why do I share this? Just simply to encourage you to keep going. You may have a lead right now that you're trying to cultivate. You may have a new prospect. Maybe it's a realtor, a builder, a financial advisor, whoever it may be that you'd like to do business with. You just got to keep going. You got to keep making contact. Now, I will tell you, if you're just making contact for the sake of contact, it's probably not going to work. Bring value first, and those contacts get rich, right? They're full of value. You're giving first, which usually sets you up to be able to ask for something in return. But be consistent around this slide and be willing to go the distance in trying to build those relationships. All right, so we're going to wrap up here a little bit in just a little bit, but I want to share the 4 rhythms. And again, this may or may not be rocket science to you, but again, in my 35 years of doing this, it all comes back to this foundation. And I think regardless of the next tech innovation that we're seeing right now is AI, right? What will AI never be able to do? It will never be able to, as a human, talk to another human. And that's where you will be indispensable, is in building your relationships with the other humans you interact with, whether those be leads, prospects, referral sources, or clients. And so, there are lots of ways we can talk about building business, but I tend to try to focus folks on these 4 areas. So let me define them real quick. It's not real hard. Leads are opportunities for you to close business. Okay. In the mortgage space, that would be a pre-qualification, someone you pull credit on and they've got some work to do. That's a lead. What are we doing to nurture those leads and converting those leads? Prospects. Prospects are individuals who could refer me business that I'd like to do business with. And I need to prospect them out. I need to try to build a relationship with them so that I can then turn them into a referral source, which is the 3rd box in the upper right. Referral sources are established partners that I do business with. And then clients, makes sense. Clients are people or businesses we have closed business with. Okay. How do we nurture those? So under each of these 4 rhythms, I've just listed, and I'll encourage you to write these down. I've just listed 3 possible activities that you could do in each area as you play each rhythm. Okay. For leads, completing hot and warm lead calls. That's a weekly activity. Sending a video newsletter. That could be a monthly activity that you send out. And maybe your CRM does that for you. Maybe you do it yourself. Connecting and engaging with leads on social media. Again, these are just 3 things. The list is longer. I just thought I'd throw 3 out, given my previous comment about all of us being chuckle brains. Prospects, research and vet potentials. Connect and engage on social media with them as well. Send value nudges. Just items of value, information of value, resources of value that maybe they would appreciate using in their own business. For referral sources, send video texts. Big on using video text. Let's all use as much video as we can. Video is here to stay, whether it's on social, but I tend to like to use it in emails and in text. It's one-on-one, has the ability to be one-on-one. You can be very personal with it. So use video text for updates or just for general stay in touch. Complete face-to-face and virtual meetings. Obviously, you got to be having meetings, and then completing weekly update calls. You'll notice as I've gone through they all start with verbs. So let's always be writing out our activities with verbs. Clients, scheduling periodic or annual reviews, sending video newsletters, sending handwritten notes. The power of a handwritten note is still real. I'll encourage you to write one before the end of the day to someone that you'd like to send it to, someone you think would appreciate it, and just wait to see the reaction that you might get. Okay. These are the 4 rhythms. I write about them in my book, The Sales Rhythm Playbook, and I encourage you to embrace these, whether in total as your business plan or as part of your business plan. These are just 4 solid rhythms, 4 solid audiences that we need to be focused on day in and day out. Okay. And build our goals, our plans, and activities around, built on the foundation of purpose, consistency, and accountability. Now, as I wrap up, I want to play a video for you. Hopefully this is going to cooperate, Amber, with me. But I want to play this video. Some of you may have seen it. I'm gonna play it and then make a couple of comments, or let y'all make a couple of comments.
Really?
Really? It's time for a phone to save us from our phones. New Windows Phone. Designed to get you in and out.
All right. Y'all like that? The Windows Phone says coming November of 2010. Interesting. Let me go back, or go to the next slide, actually, maybe. There we go. Hopefully y'all can see that. There we go. I make a point with the video around distractions. Okay. Again, back to my kind of funny term of chucklehead. We get distracted, right? And we need this foundation that we know we can rely on to be able to get the highest value work done each day. So, whether it's our phones, and that video makes a great point. In that video, the iPhone had not been out very long at that point when Windows rolls out this thing to save us from our phones, right? I think we're still trying to get saved from our phones, but the concept of being distracted by whatever it is real. And so how do I focus? And that's what I'll end with. And I'll challenge you guys to create your purpose, write that purpose statement, and rely on it. Hold yourself accountable, and as well as find that accountability partner you can trust. Build the consistency into your routines each day that you can rely on. Write out your goals, your plans, and your activities, but remember the thinking progression that I shared with you of how thinking drives performance, and find ways to bridge that knowing doing gap. And then as you build goals, plans, and activities, I'll encourage you, lean into these 4 rhythms: lead rhythm, prospect rhythm, referral source rhythm, and client rhythm. And let that help you build out a day and a week and a month and a year that you can look back on and you can say, this potentially was the most successful, meaningful, purposeful year I ever had. So Amber, join me back on Teams and let me know of any questions that you guys have. I'd love to hear any comments, share any thoughts that you guys have around how this is speaking to you. I hope that you can take it into fourth quarter and into 2026 and have a fantastic year.
Absolutely. Really appreciate that. I think, as everybody's kind of planning for 2026 or just even an uptick in the fourth quarter, it's really great perspective. So hopefully everybody kind of took some information away. Steve has the book out here if you guys want some additional information on the program that he kind of, I feel like, scratched the surface on today. I feel like we can always learn more. But we will follow up with the presentation and information afterwards, or it'll be listed on the MBAC's website. And if you have questions, this is Steve. Steve, is your contact information? Okay, LinkedIn is right there. So you should be able to get in touch with them that way.
Yep.
If not, shoot me an email and I'd be happy to share it as well. So we really appreciate you joining, and for everyone else, thank you guys for staying engaged and joining. Wanted to kind of put a plug in for the Mortgage Bankers of the Carolinas as well. Our annual convention is coming up in just a few short weeks. That's at the beginning of October in Greensboro, North Carolina. So if you are within driving distance, or even if you're not and you haven't registered, then check it out. Just go to mbac.org and you'll find the information there. And we should have one more education series for the fourth quarter for the mortgage bankers as well. So stay engaged and let us know if you have any questions or want to see something different come fourth quarter. So
right. Good stuff. Thanks, Amber.
Thanks, guys.
Appreciate y'all's time. All the best.